Weirding Way Media.
You know, Susan, I'm glad that we've talked about 9 to 5 and then the China Syndrome and then what was the other one?
All of Me.
All of Me. And I'm glad that we're here now because I feel like if we had watched this, say, after 9 to 5, I might have had more questions of a different kind than I do now because, this is a movie that we watched. And I don't know who's watching it in 2023, I think is a statement that I think you and I might both agree with.
What's funny is it's streaming. You can access it.
Sure is. So as they say, so many things are streaming out there. I don't know. Like, all those other movies that we watched were, I think, have aged better. And I think that this one, for better or for worse, is very much of the time. And maybe even at the time, it probably wasn't of the time in a lot of ways.
Correct. I think you are correct. This was very much of the time. And even of the time, it was dated and out of time, for sure, I would say, and awkward at best.
And, I don't know what at worst, but we're going to find out. We're going to talk about it on this episode of the Culture Cast. I am still your host, Chris Stachiw, and I am joined by my good friend all the way from 80s TV Ladies. She's one of the hosts over there talking about 80s TV featuring Who'da Thunk It. Ladies, your friend and mine, Susan Lambert-Haddam.
Hello. Thanks for having me on and for staying the course.
God, that's what I'm saying. Like, if this had been the one we watched after all those, I'm like, Susan, maybe we watch, maybe not. Maybe, I mean, I wouldn't have stopped, but this is comparatively, obviously, it's hard to compare this to 9 to 5, let alone China Syndrome or All of Me. But on this episode, this very special episode of the Culture Cast, we are going to be talking about a little film from 1982 based on a musical from 4 years before. Both of them share the same name, but only one of them has Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds in it. We're talking about The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Don't touch that dial. You know what's going on in this innocent-looking ranch. And what's going on is evil, immoral, and against the law. Everybody up!
They say it's indecent. They say they're going to close it down. Because with Burt and Dolly, this much fun just couldn't be legal. It's The Best Little in Texas. A Universal Pictures.
So the film is directed by Colin Higgins. Yeah, he directed 9 to 5, didn't he? Whoa, boy, didn't he? It's written by Colin Higgins, Larry L. King, and Peter Masterson, and it's based on the Broadway musical of the same name, written by the two gentlemen that aren't Colin Higgins, Larry L. King, and Peter Masterson. And it stars Burt Reynolds as the sheriff of a town that has the chicken ranch, which is run by good old Dolly Parton. And, Dom DeLuise is an old TV huckster who's going to go and get that chicken ranch shut down. And it's Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton's job to stop that from happening, maybe or not. Does this movie have a plot? I questioned it from the beginning and to the end. Susan, you brought this movie to the show, and I'm curious kind of, because I know you have some exposure to it through having put it on stage. So tell me a little bit about your history with The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Okay, so The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, it did start as a Broadway musical, and a very unusual one at that. One of the reasons you don't see it done a lot is because it's called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and no one wants to say the word whore in a title of a musical. But apparently they did, because it was the only thing they felt really explained it. It's kind of based on a true story. And the musical itself is pretty famous because it kind of came out of nowhere and then was this really big hit. And then sort of never gets done because it's very hard for regional theaters and theaters to do it. However, I have directed it. So I directed it in the probably in the world of the year 2000 and change, 2005, I think. I'm guessing, I'm not sure, for the Pasadena Shakespeare Company, the Shakespeare organization, which does a musical every year to raise money. And they've been doing it for years. And I was invited to direct for 2 years. And we did South Pacific, a very traditional musical, crowd-pleasing musical. And then we did Best Little Whorehouse in Texas because I didn't want to do Music Man again. But the thing about the musical that is very different from the movie is you would describe it actually as a female-driven musical, because in the musical, it is more about Mona, the madam of the whorehouse, the chicken ranch, and the girls in the house. And then these outside forces that are coming in to sort of attack them, and the sheriff trying to navigate between those two forces, even through like massive amounts of hypocrisy. So, because it's like everybody's like, oh yeah, the whorehouse is terrible, and then they're paying to bring the football players after they win the game to the whorehouse. The politicians are. So it's a very interesting musical, and actually quite beautiful. The musical is a crowd pleaser. It is beautiful. It is interesting because it is about sex workers, but it doesn't really judge that necessarily. It sort of says, well, it's good, clean fun. Now, the movie
I was about to say, I was waiting for the other shoe to fall here, because you kept saying the musical. Now the film.
It wasn't a terrible idea on paper to turn the musical into a film, but I think it got caught in that now I'm blanking, but I'm 90% sure it's a 70s musical.
Yeah, 78.
Yeah. So it has a very 70s feel to it. And particularly like for Broadway, it was kind of raw, and it was just different than anything else on Broadway. And so that's one of the reasons it did so well. And it kind of came out of nowhere. And this gets caught, I think, in the grind of what the 80s movie is becoming, which is like a little bit more style than substance, less. It's sort of in between, right? It's not 9 to 5 had that same issue too. It starts off and it's like the look of it is very kind of 70s and muted and kind of almost like the opening is almost documentary like, right?
Right.
And then it becomes sort of this fantasy with big stars, big star fantasy, wish fulfillment. And so I think that, here the problem becomes is they then decide, once they cast Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds in a musical, Burt Reynolds not known for his singing chops then or now, right?
Or ever. Look, they're still doing it. It's not like Burt Reynolds. It's not like they stopped after they cast Burt Reynolds in this movie. So we're never going to cast another male lead in a musical that can't sing. Pierce Brosnan, Stellan Skarsgård, Johnny Depp, Ryan Gosling. It kind of. I'm not going to say it started here, but this is a very good example of stunt. It feels like stunt casting. It feels like not casting the right people, frankly.
And now here's the interesting thing. The sheriff, it's not a bad casting in theory for the sheriff, but then they went and changed because in the musical, and again, I'm going to talk about the musical a lot because quite honestly, the musical is better than the film. And the musical, because the musical makes more sense. The story of the movie, they changed some significant things. It's pretty much like the same concept and some same events. But in the musical, the sheriff is really just trying to negotiate kind of between these two. And the sheriff is a hothead. There is so many curse words in the musical, more than I've ever seen in any stage play, even a Mamet play, because the sheriff, every time he comes on, is like, God, blah, 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 God, like F, this, G, that. It's so much.
So he's kind of like Yosemite Sam.
He is very much like Yosemite Sam.
Okay.
And he and Mona, like 15 years ago, had a one-night stand, the madam. And so there's an undercurrent to their relationship. They're friends. They're no longer friends with benefits.
Right.
That was a one-night stand that was clearly meaningful for them in some way, even though she's also a prostitute who now runs a house of prostitutes. But he respects her and he's trying to protect her and this institution that is in the town, and the town has accepted for years. And it's financially supports the town because she pays a lot of taxes and she pays for everybody to kind of turn the other way. And she takes care of the girls that work there and makes sure that they're well taken care of. And then chaos ensues when, basically, and that was of the time too, the beginning of television, sort of evangelicals, television, sort of the controversy, we're going to turn something that's there and may or may not be nefarious, good or bad or whatever, but we're going to turn it into the thing, the border crisis, the books of terrible trans grooming, and this whorehouse is going to be, and it's really all about driving attention and money and feeding kind of hatred but outrage, feeding outrage.
Right.
So there's a lot going on in the musical that's really about commentating on those things and commentating on the hypocrisy of those things. And in the theater musical, it's sort of focusing on the characters that are being affected by it, the characters within the whorehouse, and then these very broad and big outside forces that ultimately are all hypocritical in their designs on what should happen to the whorehouse. And the sheriff and Mona are kind of trying to navigate the center of that and trying to navigate through without closing the whorehouse, and that doesn't work, and they lose. It's a bit of a tragedy in some ways. You're sad when all the girls leave the whorehouse because it was just a little bitty old pissant country place,
right,
as they sing at the beginning. So it's weirdly sweet. It's got amazing crowd pleasing numbers. I think the music in the musical is really great. I love actually the 2 songs that Dolly wrote for this. They pulled out about 6 songs and added 2 songs.
They added one of these song gets
now
added.
She had already written that song. So
yeah, but it gets re-recorded for this. I mean, this puts it on the path to being what it ends up being.
This puts it on the path to The Bodyguard and to Whitney Houston's version for sure. Because
to the printing of money, as Dolly Parton so aptly puts it now. And she's totally right. I mean, she's completely right.
She's completely right. However, they decide they have to turn the sheriff and Dolly. They have 2 stars, so they have to do all these scenes where they're in love and they have a love story and they have an ongoing relationship that then is affected by this. And it is a really bad choice.
Yes. It's a bad choice because it hurts my overall ability to enjoy this movie because the Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton have no chemistry together.
There is no that first scene is so awkward.
It's so bad because again, I've seen Burt Reynolds movies. I watched I did a whole Burt Reynolds month courtesy of your lovely husband over on the Culture Cast. We did a whole thing about
Sharky's
Burt Reynolds
Machine,
month.
yes.
Yeah. And Burt Reynolds at his most charismatic in something like Smokey and the Bandit. I could see why you would cast him in something like this. But Dolly Parton is a very particular kind of person. And she hasn't been in very many things. I think people would like to believe and or remember incorrectly that Dolly Parton is some actress on top of being a singer and kind of just a pop culture personality in a lot of ways. She's not an actress. She's been in like a handful of things. But her and Burt Reynolds have no chemistry. And that is the focal point of this version of the musical. And, I think it's kind of telling that this is an RKO production because what this should have been and what the stage play kind of sounds like is a American version of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And the fact that the musical, the way you've described it and the way I read about it and looked at videos on YouTube of it being performed, it seems more subversive than this movie had this movie never even attempted to be that subversive. This movie tries to be kind of cutesy and it doesn't work because what this is exactly what you said, which is this kind of weird, for the time weird, and I'm not weird anymore, but female-led sex worker-based musical. That is subversive for 1978.
But without the sex workers, there's basically it's kind of shocking in the middle of the movie when the Aggies show up and then they show up to expose the chicken ranch that they're actually showing like naked bodies and people having sex and making it kind of a little grotesque because it's being captured on film and
it's very body.
Flash. It's very body, but it's not fun. and the movie is so soft before that in some ways, and so not realistic that when that happens, it feels like a different movie. You feel like, wait, there are girls having sex in this place, like, but because the women working the chicken ranch are missing from this movie. There is no relationship between Dolly Parton and any other woman in the chicken ranch except for sort of the housekeeper who is what's her name?
Dulcie-May. No,
Dulcie-May.
Not Dulcie-May. No. God damn it. What is that actress's name?
Now I'm blanking. And she doesn't have anything to do except be supportive and like go, oh, thank God you came back
and play a very stereotypical kind of character.
Yes, stereotypical black housekeeper in Texas.
Yeah,
basically, and that's not there's not much relationship there at all. There's no true.
I mean, the sex workers function as a chorus, right? In the movie, they function as a chorus. And again, if this is the only version you've ever seen and you like this, do not take any of this as an attack on the movie if you're a fan of this film. But this movie does not portray sex work in a way that is, it's not progressive. It's not anything. It doesn't take a stand. And the musical does. And the fact that you strip out what is part of the subversive nature of this musical to make it fucking cutesy with Burt Reynolds is really telling of the time it came out, because if it had come out a couple years earlier, it might have been subversive. If it had come out closer to 78, maybe 79 or 80, and not had the star power involved, it would have been subversive if it had just been the stage play with the people from the stage play. Because, Rocky Horror, for the most part, a lot of those people were from the stage. Tim Curry was from the stage play. I mean, obviously Richard O'Brien wrote it, but he's also on stage doing Rocky Horror along with Tim Curry when they put it on initially. Like, I don't understand casting other people other than if you want to get that name notoriety and have a bigger cast of people than you would have had on stage. But you sacrifice your musical for the sake. You sacrifice everything that your musical is to have Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds in it.
Well, and here's the funny thing. And you sacrifice musicals itself. This movie made a good amount of money, I believe.
Yeah,
it did well.
Yeah.
It was a big music for the time. And again, there weren't a lot. We were in the death spiral of musicals. There was
at least this kind, this more or less like being, again, for as subversive as the stage play is, the movie itself is presented very matter of fact, straightforward. Like it doesn't take a stance on anything, frankly. Like,
and I want to be fair about subversive. It's subversive for a Broadway musical. At the end of it,
so is Rocky Horror, though, right?
It is not as subversive as Rocky Horror.
But I don't think Rocky Horror is that subversive anymore. Like,
but again, even at the time,
sure. But like, I think
Rocky Horror would have been for the time very subversive. This was between Rocky Horror and The Music Man, quite honestly.
Rocky Horror is like pushing it, obviously. But like this was pushing it. I mean, like you said, the name alone is pushing it. It's pushing what people are going to even be able to say in polite company, right? I don't know how people who referred to this in public media referred to it as a best little whorehouse. Did they say that when they were referring to this? You know what I mean?
Here's the thing. Like, people never forgave me. I was not asked back after to direct because there were some people that were really offended that.
And this was in the mid 2000s, right?
And this was the mid 2000s. Yeah. So, and yet everybody who actually came to the musical loved it,
right?
Because it is still very sweet, and it was very subtle in the, at least we're being honest with our sex worker issue, and if we should do it, it should be safe and healthy for everyone. But it was very subtle. That was not like the main vein of it. It was really about watching hypocrisy rise and kind of get an outrage, destroy tradition in some ways, but not in a good way. I think the movie in particular is also very related to the sort of the Southern movies of the 70s and 80s, right?
Like Smokey and the Bandit,
and even other Burt Reynolds stuff where there was a lot of movies and television, I'm realizing now as I look back at the 70s and 80s, that was specifically Southern, Texas Southern or Georgia Southern, or, like where, there was literally, I was just reminded recently, a television show called Carter Country that was about Georgia and the South, that was basically came about because President Carter became president and people were fascinated by Southern culture.
Keep on trucking.
And
so it's around the same time as like the whole CB,
the whole
trucker
CB,
thing, right?
The trucker thing, the Smoking Bandit. Like it was this celebration of good old boys, right? And just meaning no harm.
Fucking weird now.
It's weird now, and I think it was
It's the antebellum days. I likes it.
It was a little bit of whitewashing of the good old boy, right? Look, they're just good old boys. They don't mean no harm.
I think the term alone, I think, evokes one kind of person more than others, and it's not anyone whose skin isn't white. I don't think anybody would disagree with me. Good old boy means, the kinds of characters that are showing up to the chicken ranch in this movie. Good old boys. Again, derogatory or not, they are good old boys. And that's why they don't care. And frankly, why do we care about sex work as a person of society in 2023? I don't think it matters what two adults do in the privacy of their own bedroom. If they want to exchange money, be my guest. Prove that they were exchanging money for sex. Prove it. You more or less can never, unless you catch them saying, I'm giving this to you for sex. But like, what's weird about this movie is it almost feels like this is the kind of thing that would benefit from having a reappraisal for modern time, like a modern version of this done. But at the same time, like,
but why? Right?
Yeah, like
there's a little bit
fucking point.
And that's the thing. Like, yes.
What was the point in 1978 even? Like in then
musical.
It made more sense then, but now it's like, why?
Right, because again, everything, so many things have changed, and that idea that there is sort of a sweet prostitution house that everybody knows about and goes to when they need to, and everybody in town kind of puts up with it because it's clean, and then they hold themselves to a standard and nobody's getting hurt, right? That we now know is very hard.
Exploitative.
It's still exploitative. There's still ways where that doesn't really work out for everybody. But in terms of the movie, I think there's a huge it's taken its sweet time. It's 2 hours and they've cut 6 songs, right? Like, or 5 songs. So there's no reason. There's a reason that musicals are 2 hours, and it's because they have 23 songs in them. Right?
Correct.
So you're on the local train. You're not on the express train in a musical. But this starts off, and they've done 2 things from the instant that are wrong. One, they've expanded the narrator. The narrator comes from the stage musical, because and the narrator is often like the band leader, or it's just a person who narrates. They don't become a character in the piece, and because they need Jim Nabors, they do have a lot of stars in this, 70 stars in this. And on one hand, it's fun to see them. On the other hand, they give them way too much screen time.
What? I do like that. I like all the women in the whorehouse keep hitting on Jim Nabors. We all know. I mean, I do appreciate. Look, Jim Nabors' character in this movie, very straight, very married. Jim Nabors in real life, neither of those things.
Neither.
But it's funny because in 78, did people win? And I guess in 82, people were not wise to that.
No, he was playing more the Barney Fife. He was playing more the Barney Fife, the sweet sidekick.
Rumors and innuendos about Jim Nabors throughout the years, but nothing I think ever, but it's just funny to see all these women throwing themselves at Jim Nabors. It's like, he's not interested either way.
And Deputy Fred is saying no. But way too much time. Like,
oh yeah. Like, what is his character's point of the movie?
It's like 10, 12 minutes before you even see Dolly Parton. She does have a nice entrance. I like the little dress bit. And she looks fabulous. And then she sings, again, kind of one of the signature songs. It's just a, little itty bitty country place. Nothing dirty going on is the name of the song. And look how sweet it is to do prostitution.
In the middle of a Texas field where you can't run away or get away or anything. Not like you're being held captive, I promise. It's a nice life here. You'll like it. You'll see.
and then we go off record altogether. And the sheriff is running around trying to get to basically his date with Mona fast. He's not trying to solve anything. And then the movie grounds to a halt.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's terrible.
Very uncomfortable and not fun scene.
Can we just say unsexy? Like, it's supposed to be so sexy, and we're turning the heat up, and Burt and Dolly are half naked in his, I guess it's his bedroom, and oh my God, they're gonna be doing the nasty, and it's like, I could not care less, and frankly, get me out of here. Like, get me out of here.
It was a little uncomfortable, and
for both of them, it's not like he's making advances on her and she's unwilling. Like, they're both very uncomfortable in the scene together.
Right. And yet they're both on paper, very willing. And I do like that she's like, hey, I need you, I'm going to dress up for you. And then she's like, but I got a little something for you to dress up for me. And she's bought him a little special underwear, lingerie, mangerie, as it were. And again, for 1982, on one hand, that was really amazing that Burt Reynolds was willing to go in and get dressed into the thing and be uncomfortable because he was being put on display in the same way that women are just accepted to be. And yet none of it was fun. Like, it would have, like, that little moment, you're like, God, you could have done something there. But here's where they really went off. They then sing what should be in a musical structure, one of the first 2 to 3 songs is called the I Want song. And it's when the main character says, here's what I want.
Right.
Here's what I need. Right. Here's what will be the driving force of this piece, thematically, personally, whatever it is. In the musical, it's a song called Girl, You're a Woman Now. And it's a girl that's arrived at the chicken ranch that has nothing left, nowhere else to go. And Mona takes her in and turns her out. It's weird. It is not subversive there, but it's because she's shown up and said, I want to work here.
Right. Well,
and I have nowhere else to go.
Yeah, turning out the willing, right? I guess.
And this is what I am going to do. And so it's basically all the girls in the whorehouse sort of helping her become a person at the whorehouse, which is weird and awkward. And it sounds terrible when I'm saying it. But it is basically thematically saying, here's what we're going to do. And here's what it is to be an adult woman in the particular situation. And we're going to support you. And you're welcome as our family member now. Now, again, you can go, but they're all sex workers and this is horrible.
Right.
Which is an argument.
In the middle of nowhere. They can't leave. Just 2 pieces of information that they make very apparent throughout the movie. They keep showing these shots of it in the middle of a field.
Yes. Yeah. And they're, but the thing is it is basically sort of, it's such a beautiful all-female song, kind of about female solidarity. This is what women have to go through one way or the other.
Right.
Is they have to find their way to this moment where they're, either, that they're living, and there's an element of they're second-class citizens, right? Like as prostitutes in the show, but also as women, right? They don't have a lot of options.
Not a lot of autonomy of their own.
Yes. So, and again, Mona, she inherited the ranch from being a sex worker at the ranch, right? So this is generations of this is what we do. But they turn it, so they replace that meaningful, sad, and sweet, and conflicting and confusing, very interesting layered song with sneaking around with you. Burt and Dolly love sneaking around together and having sex and playing, and everything's fun and fun town.
And Burt Reynolds can't sing.
And Burt Reynolds can't sing. It's a lovely song. I think the song is really great. It's a great Dolly Parton song. It's just a little bit out of place in this moment in time, because then you're like, well, this is about nothing. This is about 2 people who just want to sneak around and have sex.
But why do they have to sneak around?
Exactly. Why do they have to sneak around?
He doesn't have a wife. She is a madame. Like, what are they sneaking around for? Oh, because he's the sheriff. But who cares?
The sheriff.
But who cares? The entire
nobody
town
seems
the entire town's complicit, as far as I'm concerned. Like, again, I had nothing wrong with sex work in real life. but this is a movie. Like, and the way it's presented in the movie is strange. And it's presented in a way that like sands off all the rough edges to the point where there are no rough edges. And it's all very smooth. And it's all very, it's very, again, like you said, like they make it seem like I'm not saying that there's not any dignity in the way the movie is presenting it, but the way that it's presented, the women in the film have no autonomy of their own, even as sex workers, which should never be the case.
Right.
Like,
they're the chorus. They're the ensemble. They're the background.
Mona is their pimp. That's what
Mona
she is.
is their pimp, right?
Like,
and she's in control. And she never has a conversation with one of the women in the house that is not her, housekeeper.
Belittling,
she does not
or belittling them.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird, and yeah. So that's and it's just such a problematic beginning, and that scene goes on a long time, and there's no urgency in there. You're like, well, what's happening, right?
Right.
And then it just ends, and because Jim Nabors shows up to be conveniently interruptive, and then. So God forbid we actually see them do anything.
I was going to say, like, for a movie called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, outside of effectively when Dom DeLuise, who we really haven't even talked about yet, but we're close.
We got to get there.
We're close. We're knocking on the door. There's very little nudity in this movie, including from our leads. Like Burt Reynolds, like he doesn't show any skin. And we don't correct me if I'm wrong.
Shirt off.
But we don't see him but we don't actually ever see him in it.
When he runs from the bathroom to under the covers. Again, it's a very like in that little few shots, there's a little something where I was like, oh, this is interesting because he's basically the embarrassed girl in the scene.
They just don't do enough, right? They're not pushing it far enough.
And that moment as a Burt Reynolds moment from 1982 is pretty amazing. Right. Just because again, Burt Reynolds represented sort of that Southern masculine male.
Right.
So him just basically complying with what she wants, even if he's uncomfortable. And, and then the audience gets to see Burt Reynolds for a second in his teeny tiny little pull away bikini, black bikini thing, underwear.
Menkini.
Menkini. Okay, that's good. I learned a new word today.
Look, I'm not saying I wanted to see more of Burt Reynolds, but like, I mean, I think the audience at the time would have. So, and
then I did think that again. So I don't want to jump ahead to the Aggie song, but we'll come back to it because that's the other nudity that's of note. I felt.
So how about Dom DeLuise playing like one of the most heavily gay coded characters I've ever seen in a movie?
Oh my God. Okay. God. Now, to be fair, this is a very, this is a great role. Like, it's very exciting to be ready to see this role. And talk about an opening scene between two characters. The Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise scene is spectacular, right? You immediately, what the stakes are. He's hilarious when he's getting dressed and he's like, hold this, and he's hold my socks that I'm then going to stick in my pants. Yeah. That scene is wonderful. I love the set design, like the giant picture that's against where the door is. It's really, I thought that scene was the first scene where I actually sat up a little bit and was like, oh, okay, this could be fun.
Because it's from a different movie. That's why. Like Dom DeLuise's character feels like he steps in from something that's much more fun than this movie is. And much more, again, kind of subversive because his character is pointed directly at the real life person who ended up causing the chicken ranch in LaGrange to close down. So, I mean, Marvin Zindler is who that's supposed to be, but it's like this like completely exaggerated Geraldo Rivera, Morton Downey Jr.-esque character. And it totally works, but it feels like it's from a better written, more thought out movie than this one because you almost want to just, and again, if you've listened to the Cannibal Run episode I did on the projection last year, you'll know how I feel about Dom DeLuise, at least in that movie. I would have been content to stay with Dom DeLuise the rest of this movie and never go back to Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds. That's how compelling what he was doing was versus what everything else was in the movie. And there's one other actor in this movie that I think I would rather see him just doing his entire role in something else than having anything to do with this. And that's Charles Durning.
Yes.
Yeah. Like he's so like Dom DeLuise and Charles Durning are better than this movie deserves. And Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton don't deserve as good of a role as those two are turning in, because they don't turn in half as good of roles as the supporting characters in this film do for the most part.
But to be fair, those are outstanding songs. Those are performance songs, right. and I mean, I'm telling you that the Dance a Little Sidestep it comes out of nowhere. It's a character we've never seen. It's like in the back
Literally.
half of the movie.
Yeah.
And suddenly the governor comes in and has this freaking like
tears the house down. Yeah. Holy shit.
It is spectacular. And you're like, and to be fair, I think in the movie, in the theater show, you see the governor like a scene before or something. Like you get a little bit of a snippet that everybody's involved in this. I think when the sheriff is trying to get people on his side was when but that number brings down the house. The Aggie song is the crowd pleasing number of this show. People stood up, right? Like, it's one of those numbers when it's done right, but also the now I'm blanking on what the name of the song is. The Chicken House song, like the Texas Has a Whorehouse in it.
Oh yeah,
that's such a again, it's such a song of outrage when you go, wait, you're just screaming. The song is like literally him going, I got to tell you this. This is ridiculous. You're going to be upset. I'm sorry I have to say this on television, but Texas has a whorehouse in it. And you're like, doesn't Texas have like 700 whorehouses in it?
Right. Just the one, though. That's the concern.
But just the one, because it's about, yeah. Anyway, that's a beautiful number. Dom DeLuise is super fun. I'm not a big fan of the hair in this one.
I mean, he's, again, like, it's very coded gay, right? Like,
I know, but there's something about the hair that was
I feel like the hair is just like meant to make him seem creepy, like just like
it does.
Off-putting.
It does
he looks like a human doll, right? Like he has also like a fake prosthetic nose thing going on.
Is that what's going on? I think
there's like something, because Dom DeLuise's nose is not that Romanesque. I think it's like a very weird nose. I don't know. They had some prosthetic on him. It wasn't just Dom DeLuise with that weird hair.
Okay. Well, and again, but I mean, that's that scene where he is dressing and putting on all the things, the corset and the shoulder pads and stuffing his pants with socks to ready for his television appearance is just, and Burt Reynolds is there trying to basically get him to stand down. And he's like, sure. And then he walks out and just burns everything in the ground. That's great. That's great characters in conflict with each other, trying to do one's got an agenda, the other one's got the opposite agenda, and then fun things happen. And chaos ensues. And I love this, one of the scenes that follow is that those scenes are more exciting when Dom DeLuise shows up at the town and has brought his whole TV crew and entourage to the town and causing trouble. And the sheriff, that's the only time you hear a little bit of the language of the play for the sheriff. That they probably dropped a lot of curse words out of that scene, but some of that scene is directly from the musical. Why
do you think they took all the profanity out of the movie? Because they still have nudity. Like they still have
a lot of profanity, and you don't.
There's
need
none. There's like none. There's like actually zero.
Was this PG-13?
There was breasts in this film, so it's
okay. So it had to be R. But
Airplane was PG when it came out.
Yeah.
This is R. This is R.
Okay.
But like it feels so like pedestrian for an R-rated movie.
It's soft R.
This movie would be PG-13 now. Like unless they had the nudity in it. Like if they didn't have the nudity, this movie would have been PG-13 at the time. There's nothing else that makes this envelope pushing to make it R. They don't curse. Burt Reynolds probably curses more in Smokey and the fucking Bandit than he does in this movie. Like, I don't know. Like it feels so quaint. Like for a movie called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, it feels quaint. Like,
and I will say that except for the sheriff, again, the softest version of subversion about what is going on, the musical is surprisingly quaint for that. It is very sweet and very sort of heartfelt.
Right.
But what's interesting is in the musical, the sheriff does not sing until the end. And then the sheriff sort of when the whorehouse is being closed and everyone's leaving and all the girls have to leave and they don't know where they're going to go. And Mona's leaving. There's no, again, long-term relationship or possibility of relationship with them. That's clear. It's this sort of unrequited thing, which is more poignant, right? And so the sheriff sings this very simple song. Basically, she's a good old girl, like, and it's beautiful and it's very simple. And you're like, he hasn't sung. And so it's a perfect musical moment of like, there's too much emotion and I don't know how to say it, so I have to sing it. And for that character on stage, you very rarely see that kind of character, a very manly man who then has a moment of breakdown in the show. So it's really, I don't know. I clearly still prefer the theater, the stage musical, but I think they miss some moments. Like think about not making Burt Reynolds sing through the whole movie until the end when he thinks he has to leave her and he sings how much he respects and loves her. Like very simply, I think you would have by that point, you would have been more aligned with him. If there was more poignancy in that relationship. Anyway.
I don't know what their relationship is. Like ultimately their relationship is definitionless. They, in the musical, as it's presented in the movie, they have a fling that is continued forever that they're both massively ashamed of and refuse to be honest with anyone in the town about. Like,
and yet they say they're happy about it.
Yeah, and yet they both clearly aren't. Yeah. And yet clearly it isn't that big of a deal because Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton by the end of the movie are together, do get married, and he does become part of the legislature. So it ultimately didn't matter at all. Yeah. Just like, for the most part, in real life, it wouldn't matter, clearly, because people in our government are doing worse things than being sex workers, frankly. And being a sex worker is not that bad at all. Zero. There is a zero judgment on being a sex worker, but there is a massive amount of judgment on the people who take sex work and turn it into the butt of a joke, which is exactly what it is in this movie. And I don't personally appreciate that, as I'm sure any more than you do, because people are having to do it for a living in real life. And like, again, trivializing it, I don't think the movie's trivializing it, but the movie is definitely just kind of like wanting to be about it, but wanting to have nothing to do with it in reality. And the musical is not, the musical as it is on stage, that's not the case, but the movie can't call itself the best little whorehouse in Texas and then have nothing to do with it in reality. Completely ignore the fact that there are actual characters in this movie that are actually being sex workers for people coming from out of town and people in the town. Like, how can you not have anything to do with sex work when that's what the movie is about? Well, that's what it's called. That's the entire problem that these characters are facing, is we work in a brothel, and that's a problem for other people, not for us. Theoretically, at least that's what they believe, but for the public writ large. And like the fact that the movie doesn't want to have a discussion outside of that is kind of, it's unfortunate, really.
It's so weird because we meet more townspeople and have them have scenes than we meet the actual workers. So at the end of the movie, when everyone's packing up and leaving, when the girls have to pack up and leave, and they're singing again this really beautiful song, Hard Candy Christmas, that they'll be okay, even though we know that some of them have nowhere to go and aren't welcome home and have damaged lives that they've, and so like, and one's like, I guess I'll go to Vegas now. And you're like, oh girl, don't go to Vegas. Right. Like, but it's not meaningful because we don't know who those women are. They're just a bunch of background women in the movie who now suddenly are helping Dolly Parton sing, the second to last song of the show.
That's more about Dolly Parton's position in the world, less their own, because we don't know anything about them because they were never characters.
Yeah.
It's, again, I mean, knowing that, again, if you watch this not knowing that the musical on stage is the way that it is, I don't think it would affect your enjoyment of the movie, because I just don't think this movie is particularly I don't think this movie is interested in being enjoyable or presenting a version of the musical that does the stage play justice. It's more interested in showcasing two of the biggest pop culture stars at the time. Burt Reynolds was much bigger than just the movies, right? Obviously, Playgirl and the whole Southern culture thing. He's like the king of that. And then you, again, ostensibly have the queen of that in a lot of ways. Like, you put him in this movie and it's more about them than it is even the musical or anything else. And the fact that I Will Always Love You is the last song in the movie, as good as it is, it completely, again, it just feels very cynical because it's Dolly Parton thing. Like, it has nothing to do with the movie. It actually just is a Dolly Parton song that they put in the movie.
Well, and again, it's a breakup song.
Right.
And they don't break up. So it's the perfect metaphor for this movie, where it is trying to, have its cake, eat it too, and then vomit it back up for entertainment. Like,
and pretend that we don't understand the message of the song. Like, you can't make the song mean something else, no matter how hard you try, when the name of the song is "I Will Always Love You." You've let the cat out of the bag before you've even said the first opening line of the song with the title of the song. Like, there's no irony to the song. Song is very straightforward, and everybody's heard the song at this point too.
Well, and again, the song only holds meaning if they don't end up together.
Right.
So for her to sing that song, and in the next 5 minutes or 3 minutes, he's like, "Oh, screw it. Let's just get together." You're like, okay, well, there you go. You just lost your one real moment of joy. Because we like to pine for our characters. I will say this, the best scene between the two of them is the scene where they fight. I liked that scene because there was literally something happening in that scene, because he's mad at her because she had said she'd shut down the whorehouse for a while just to keep things quiet. And then she has to open it because, the Aggies won the football game. So they're being, it's a tradition that they be sent there as a reward. This college team, for winning the college football game, the politician makes sure they always get to go to the whorehouse after they win.
I see personally nothing wrong with this, like, in reality, but
a politician paying for that.
Well, not the politician part, but effectively boosters could be you replace politicians with boosters, because it's probably more in reality it was the boosters sending them, right?
Well, the boosters are the
right, but whoever the booster,
the head of the booster is probably running for office,
right? Yeah, rich people making sure that the kids are taken care of.
The kids are taken care of, and again, that song brings down the house and that's the other part that I really, again, you're like, this part is mildly subversive in the movie of 1982, where there's an equal amount of male butt nudity.
Yeah.
That shower. I mean, again, they're in the locker room changing. That is from the musical. They're in the locker room changing, and then they do quite honestly a most amazing dance. And there's on the stage show, if you're doing it the way that it was staged, and thankfully our choreographer was like, we have to do it this way, even though it took a lot. Right. I wanted to cut it because it was so challenging for our situation, and the choreographer begged me to keep it. And it was a showstopper. He was right. And I'm glad I listened to him, because in the middle of the song, as they're getting dressed from their football uniforms into their the whorehouse outfits, and their cowboy boots, they basically do a dance in cowboy boots and shirtless in the movie.
And towels.
And before that, we see them in the movie, you see them pretty naked in the shower together. You're like, woo, okay, all those boys in the shower together. All those good-looking football boys having a good old time. They can't wait. It's very interesting for that movie, because it is very much, there may be more male nudity, or at least, tops off in this movie than female nudity because of that scene.
I think we see the male nudity first.
We do see the male nudity first, and anyway, in the stage musical, basically the hats come flying down, at the cowboy hats, and they put them on and keep going, and it's just a really great moment in the piece. And
it goes to show that the musical numbers that's the sad thing about the movie. The musical numbers are really good. The ones that are clearly from the musical and are being done close to the way they're done in the musical are good. I mean, we talked about Watchdog Report already, the first scene between Burt Reynolds and, Dom DeLuise, that's right before that. I mean, that whole, I can't really take those apart in my mind. They're part and parcel together. The Aggie song is fantastic. And then the entire thing with Charles Durning is fantastic as well. And that's kind of it. For me, it's those three musical numbers, and there's very little else in between that the movie does to warrant existing as a adaptation of the stage play. Like, we get to see bigger budget versions of some of these songs being done, but that's kind of it, because everything else seemingly they're not interested in doing. They're more interested in showing us Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds. And when she sings I Will Always Love You to him, it's more uncomfortable than that scene that they shared at the beginning together, because she's just standing in that room singing it to him, and it's like, yikes. He
looks uncomfortable in that, like, again, and yet I actually kind of glossed over that, because I'm like, oh my God, this is where the bodyguard came. Like, this is when it comes from this. Without that moment, I don't think this song would have been picked for the bodyguard.
No.
And
because the movie wants it to be a big moment. Like, the movie understands that this is it. This is the climax. This is the emotional climax of the movie, and it just falls flat. They just and so I looked up, so because Dolly Parton has talked about this movie being no fun. Yeah, boy, hasn't she.
And
she's kind of the last one standing at this point, so she can kind of say whatever the fuck she wants, really. I mean,
and she's not. She's basically saying kind of both she and Burt Reynolds were in a bad place. Like, she apparently was having a lot of health issues, and so she's like, and it was she was, she has grueling touring schedules, but filming is a very different beast, right? And so, the sort of the anxiety of doing the film and the schedule, she says, brought on a serious illness, which she, basically made, she was like, bedridden for a year or something. So it afterwards, and she's like, it took a toll on her mentally and physically, which in turn soured her time on the film. And part of that was also, I guess, there's just, there's always a lot going on for Dolly. Like, she's got a big whole empire, right? And she was, the empire was just being built at this point.
But she's still, I mean, again, like, we talk about Dolly Parton now, and like I was saying at the top of this, like, there are people that probably think that she's like known for being an actress. Like, she's obviously much more a singer than anything else, obviously, even more than a pop culture icon. She is a fantastic singer, but she was a fantastic singer then. Like, this wasn't like Dolly Parton became a big deal 2 years after this. Like, she was a big deal then. She doesn't have the empire that she does now then, but this was post Porter Wagoner, which is where I Will Always Love You came from. She goes out on her own, doing her own thing. Like, if this is a vehicle for Dolly Parton, I get it. But this is a very bad vehicle for Dolly Parton, because it doesn't showcase anything other than her ability to sing. And it feels okay. Her ability to sing was more on display in 9 to 5 because she's the main song in that movie, and nobody else has to compete with her. She doesn't compete with anybody else, and she can actually act in that movie. They actually give her something to do, even if it is just kind of playing herself in a way, like a very much played up version of herself, or the assumption of who she is. Well, I don't think that's the case, but in this movie, she's playing like again, if the way I'm looking at it, she's a fucking nefarious character in this movie. She's not a good person, but that's because she's the one in control. That's why.
Well, and because you don't see her basically being a
doing the
figure,
job,
right? Yeah. Doing the job. You see her basically out, like sneaking around, not doing her job of taking care of her girls.
Right.
And so she does not seem to be it's like, oh, this is the person who's keeping them all safe from the scary outside world. These broken, damaged people who are there hiding from something, right? Like, and if, if they're going to be sex workers, here's the best situation they have in front of them, right? Because they don't have any other options. That's very, this is their best option, or the option that they're choosing. And so here's a place where they can do it and be safe and taken care of. And you don't really get that. There's a song to it when she's saying, oh, there's nothing dirty going on. We're all just a good, wholesome fun. That's supposed to be really, you're supposed to believe that. Like it's hypocritical because there is some, it's too naive.
There is most definitely something going on.
Yeah, something going on. But is it dirty or is it just sex, right? Like, and so if everything else being equal, and that's what it's trying to pretend. And again, I think the problem is our society is very complicated. So,
it's cutesy.
Yeah.
It's like a baby. It's like a very childish way of thinking about it, to the point where you don't even discuss and or address what really is going on. And again, I'm not asking for like a gritty, realistic look at being a brothel runner, but like at the same time, like you're not even interested in like doing anything with it. You just like, she could do any job as far as I'm concerned. Dolly Parton doesn't have to be a madam in this movie. She could be doing anything.
Right. You do not get that this is only her only option too. And that's because there's no poignancy in the relationship between her and the sheriff, that they don't have a relationship because even though they had their one night stand, they don't have a relationship because she's a prostitute and he's the sheriff. And they were sort of inherited those roles.
Right.
Literally and figuratively. And so you're missing that the substance of that relationship, which is we can love each other all we want, but the world is the world and we have to live in the world, and we have to live in the roles that we've been handed and do our best with them.
Yeah, but that's that's not fun. You can't make that fun, Susan. Come on. It's not a fun.
You can.
That's not, I know you can. I'm being facetious. Okay, I'm being facetious, but you and I both know, sitting in that writer's room, that's what they were thinking.
I was going to say,
this can't be fun. Like
if you're a studio who has just cast Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds in your 1982 movie based on a Tony Award-winning musical play from Broadway, you are like, I need more Dolly and Burt.
Right.
I want them to be together.
Charles Durning and Dom DeLuise, who gives a shit about them?
You know, those are fun too, but I just put it all in there, but give us more Dolly and Burt, Dolly and Burt, Dolly and Burt. And then Dolly and Burt show up, and I think there's some article I read where Dolly was saying, well, Burt just broken up with Sally Field, so he wasn't in a good place. I wasn't in a good place. We were both miserable. But also they had changed. If you change the intention of the musical, like on a basic level for those characters, Dolly Parton in 9 to 5 is playing a fairly naive, good-hearted person. Right. Who's in an absurd situation. The character in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas is a woman who started at the Chicken Ranch as a prostitute and stayed her whole adult life to the point where she's now a very adult person. She's, I don't know how old Dolly Parton is at this point, but she's not a young chicken, as it were. And so she's now running the place. So this is not a character who's naive. This is not a character. She can't be naive. She, in fact, has to be sort of motherly. She has to be not matronly, but she has to be motherly because she's still sexy. And she also has to be really smart. Right. She has navigated being right outside this small town very well. The town is very accommodating of them until someone, 90 miles away in Houston decide to start making trouble. This is a small town that's in stasis, right? They're very happy with Dolly Parton. Right. She's running that well. There's not trouble out there. It's all good.
It is the world that is wrong, is what this movie is trying to say. Like,
it's a big town people. But the problem is that, again, I think for Dolly Parton to get to that place of it's a real threat. It's a small hole that Dolly Parton always threads, and it's amazing she threads it because she's this extreme example of a woman. In a lot of ways. And she's also sweet, but she's also so very focused, right. So on one hand, you're like, okay, there's a way to make this character work being played by Dolly Parton. But I think it's the you also have to be a little bit edgy.
Right. Oh yeah. Agreed.
And there's not an edge to Dolly Parton. Right?
Sand it off completely. That's why they cast her, because she has no edge. Like, I don't know what edge Dolly Parton is not like Dolly Parton now. And I mean, maybe then, but now for sure, like there's nothing edgy about Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton is more comfortable probably doing things with people like Joanna Gaines and other people who are very much appealing to a mass market audience, large amount of consumers as possible. And you don't want to ruffle tail feathers, and that's perfectly fine. But
I mean, think about this with Bette Midler.
Or anybody else,
from
really.
That time. Like where it's like, oh, I totally buy that she's a madam. And I totally buy that she's tough enough to run a whorehouse in Texas outside a small town and run it well.
And how weird would that have been if it would have been Bette Midler? Wow, what a movie that would have been. Holy shit. And who would have been
if it wasn't, I
think Burt Reynolds could have worked though. Like, that's the thing. Like,
and then you're like, oh, then you could, right?
Well, that's the question. Like, if if you look at this movie and if you take Burt Reynolds out, does it work better? And it's Dolly Parton up against somebody else, but not as big of a presence as Burt Reynolds? Or is taking Dolly Parton out and leaving Burt Reynolds? Because like you've mentioned, the stage play, the sheriff is a different kind of character that they obviously changed to more suit Burt Reynolds realistically.
Yeah.
So the question is, like, would you rather have the musical with the sheriff the way he is and Dolly Parton, or her character the way she is and Burt Reynolds' character change? Like, that's really what you have to ask. Or would you rather this have been close to the stage play? Because without the two of them, it's probably closer to the stage play than anything else, right?
And so here's an interesting, like, I would do Dolly Parton and Charles Durning as the sheriff, and and him really going full character on the sheriff.
Sure.
And
he could do it. He could fucking do that.
And then he's just losing his shit all the time, and she won't do it once. But they also have, again, I think you fix a lot of things if you don't try to make them just, they're just kicking it. They're kicking it, having sex and sneaking around. It's fine. Everything's good. You're like that. You just don't buy it.
I don't buy it at all.
And it lowers all the stake in the movie, because their friendship becomes a stake. It's like their friendship is at stake in the musical, and it is effective. It didn't have to be it's sort of a lost love story. It's like We Can Never Be love story, which are very, very powerful, and in fact can be more powerful than, we love each other and we're going to get together at the end. It's like, oh my God, we don't always want that story. We know that story isn't always true. It doesn't always work out. And
I think that's a more mature narrative to actually be honest about it, as opposed to like so damn cutesy.
And it gives weight.
Yeah. There are some stakes here. They would not end up together, possibly. Like the beginning of this movie, there's no doubt in my mind Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds are ending up together, even if the movie tries to essentially fake you out. Because the movie tries to fake you as the audience out. It's like, well, here's how the story actually happened. Like, thanks, Jim Nabors, for filling us in.
Oh my God. And then by the time he comes back, you're like, really? Just stop.
Get the movie. I would like to be in my car already leaving.
Well, I mean, and again, when the musical ends poignantly in the stage musical, and then you do have that narrator back, he pulls you back and reminds you this is a fable, right? This is a little bit of a, like, here's a story I'm going to tell you. And then you go through that story and you find yourself emotionally affected, and you're like, oh my God. And then he goes back and goes, but remember, it was just a story, y'all. And you're like, oh, okay, it was the best little whorehouse. It was the best little whorehouse in Texas.
And that for me, I think is like what I would have preferred. Like at the end, Jim Nabors being like, and that's the way I like to believe it turned out. Maybe it didn't actually happen that way. Like, at least just acknowledge the fact that this is a fucking hokey premise that you're not letting be as weird as it could have been, and you wanted it to just be very generic in a lot of ways and straightforward. Like, at least give us the idea that that this is all kind of hokey and horse shit. Like, no. Sincerely, they're together at the end, and sincerely, he's part of the state legislature. Like, are you movie? Like,
right. Well, because it goes against everybody we've seen, which is everybody has to be a hypocrite to be in politics and to be manipulating the world at that level.
Right. That's why Charles Durning is so good. It's because it's like the best song ever sung about politicians by a politician.
Really
like,
it really is.
It takes to task politicians more than it takes to task anything else in this movie, by that song alone being so good, to the point that Charles Durning got nominated for an Academy Award for this movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is kind of mind-boggling, because
it's one scene.
Effectively, yes. It's
one big number.
Yeah, it's one musical act. Like, I know that people get nominated for a lot of performances, but I don't think many people have gotten nominated for being as little in the movie as possible as he is in this. I think there was another actress a couple years ago that got nominated for being in the movie like 15 minutes type thing. Like, this is effectively the same thing. He didn't win, but he does make a sizable impact on the film, to the point where I'm not questioning why they did it. It just, that in and of itself feels kind of quaint, because that's not a thing that would happen now. Like, nobody's gonna be like, oh yeah, this one musical number is good enough. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story. So in the musical, because the Pasadena Shakespeare Club is is a female-driven club.
Sure.
And so when you're casting those musicals, you have to put more females in them than men because that's the group.
Right.
So we changed the role of Melvin P. Thorpe to Merva P. Thorpe, and it was a woman doing that in her very big beehive. And basically turned it into sort of like a little bit more evangelical, but also still that sort of investigative, pushy, like
right.
And it was lovely. It worked beautifully.
Yeah, I would be curious. Like, could do like a gender swapped version of Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, but it's like a male brothel.
Yeah.
Well,
when you see the Aggie song, so the Aggie song, I just love that friggin' song, and you get this beautiful dancing of the men. But I'm doing my podcast
with Chris.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was supposed to start at 1:30.
Oh, we're running over.
I was literally about to text Rich.
He's about to text.
I was literally about to text Richard, like, we're wrapping up now.
That's all.
We're wrapping up. Oh my God, he's so annoyed. We've lost track of time, and he's mad at me.
I don't know why he's mad at you. I was literally
it's been a long day, to be fair, for both of us. So
Well, I mean, if Richard needs to reschedule, I totally get it. So
no, he's fine. He was prepared. And, he's been waiting, and he doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know what's going on. So anyway, all right. Well, there you go.
So I guess finish your thought. Go ahead. Would this work gender swapped with male and female with a mostly male quote, sex worker cast, and then the female characters being the sheriff and the Melvin P. Thorpe character? Because you already mentioned you gender swapped it yourself. Yes. So could it go even further? I don't know if it would even, again, I don't think this story is like one that in 2023 anybody needs to be revisiting, frankly.
Yeah, I don't know that it works other than as like, again, sort of a very subversive and weird Music Man, right? Like it's very much of its time. But again, it's still a fun, once you buy into the premise, it's super fun. Yeah. And we buy into crazy premises, right? Like, and all these older shows.
This ain't that high concept. Like it ain't like Jesus Christ.
Well, not high. Once you buy into,
right? Okay, but I mean, it's kind of high concept, right? It's trying to be. I think the musical sounds like it understands much more what it's trying to be versus the movie.
There are much less honest musicals, right? Like, so South Pacific has an incredible amount of racism in it for a musical that's trying to deal with racism in a positive way.
Right.
And there's just horrifying amounts of sexism in so many of our classic musicals. The King and I also, just really problematic classic musicals. So I think this goes in that world of it's mildly problematic because we just have a different view of kind of men and women and sex workers and the world now. So it's really about, and I think that's what the narration sort of is supposed to do, is kind of take you back to this different time. And here's this weird little story. And I think being based on a true story actually helps it, because you're like, you know what, this happened. So, and this is the musical, fictionalized version of based on a true story. So take it from that. So I think you can still do the stage musical, because I think we will take that in our theater, right? Of like, oh, this
They're
is
still doing South Pacific, right?
Yeah,
like
we're still doing all these more problematic shows, but the title really does stop a lot. More people would do it without that title, but I don't know that it would be what it is without that title, right? So anyway, I think we barely use the word whore in this show, which I think goes to show, like, hard to say it. It
just like you said, it goes to show the changing dialogue that we as a society have had about how we talk about people who are sex workers. And I think that, this movie, I don't think hurts that ongoing dialogue that we're having now in a much more, in a lot of ways, emotionally mature society. But like you said, like the stage thing is always going to be the stage thing. And I think it's probably best there. And frankly, it may have been best there without this also. Like, we wouldn't have Dom DeLuise and Charles Durning, but they're so small parts of a 2-hour movie that is so much everybody else movie, those everybody else being Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton. It's like, I kind of just like leave it where it was. And if you want to see those good parts of the movie, that's like 20 minutes worth of watching. Like, that's it. That's all you got to watch. You don't have to commit to the whole movie.
And I'm not saying we should look at Rhinestone, but I will say, like, a couple years later, Dolly Parton sort of was more actively as a producer, I believe, on Rhinestone, which was her and Sylvester Stallone. I would watch that original. I don't think that's based on anything. And I in some ways, I think it was sort of like kind of obviously sort of developed right around the same time, or at least started to. And it feels a little bit like it was trying to, like, well, let me see if I can get this better and have a better experience of something. I don't know that it is any more successful, but I've never seen it. I saw this when it came out because I was a fan of musical theater. I didn't know much about the show. I'd never seen the show at the time that I saw the movie, but I remember feeling it was very awkward and not quite what I expected it to be at the time.
It's still that.
But it does have a line that I love. It's always a business doing pleasure with you, Senator, or whatever. I was like, that's a good line.
So Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, I was gonna say, Susan, final thoughts on the best little whorehouse in Texas, the best little click in Texas, as they would say in the trailers for the movie.
If you are a Dolly Parton completionist, you must see it. If you are a Burt Reynolds completionist, you must see it. If you just want to see two really spectacular musical numbers, I would YouTube the Aggie song and Charles Durning. A sidestep. What's it called? Dance a little sidestep. I'm completely with you. Again, like,
it's good to go back and revisit these things and kind of see and maybe reacquaint ourselves. In your case, given that you'd seen this before and I hadn't, like, again, I'm glad that I've seen it. It's not something I probably ever will revisit, but at the same time, those parts of the movie that are good are so good that they will stick with me, because that song is catchy. The Do a Little Sidestep is really catchy, and that will stick with me. Not much else will. And that's the problem, I think, with this movie. This movie didn't do anything to make me forget that the name of it is The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. It didn't do anything to make me forget that was the name of it, because it didn't address sex work in an interesting way. Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton didn't have anything to do. And by the end of it, I just go, this was fun for the two of them, I'm sure. But even it wasn't fun for them. So that's like a shame in and of itself. Like, at least if they had fun, I could say, well, at least everybody making it had fun. Wasn't even the fucking case. So it's too bad. It sounds like maybe this came at the wrong time in everybody's lives and they tried to make the best of it. And there you go. So we tried to make the best of it while talking about it.
Well, I appreciate you going on this journey.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think this happened and got greenlit because of 9 to 5. So.
But it would lead me, those other two movies we talked about, they came before 9 to 5. China Syndrome did.
I think All of Me came after, but I don't. Yeah. I think
this
really
is because of 9 to 5. 100%.
Yeah.
To the point that it's Colin Higgins. I mean.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, you know.
Yeah. So speaking of 9 to 5, when you're not here, Susan, talking with me on the Culture Cast, where can people find what you do?
You can find myself and my co-host Sharon Johnson at 80s TV Ladies, 80stvladies.com, and just in our podcast. It drops every other week. And so join us, listen in, and talking about television ladies of the 80s. Super fun.
And you can find that show along with this show and so many other shows over at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is the podcast network that we have for all the shows that we do. This one, Susan's show, 80s TV Ladies, Mike White's The Projection Booth, and so many other shows can be found over at weirdingwaymedia.com. And you should go there and listen now, because if you're not, well, you're probably not listening to anything worth listening to anyways. And there's a lot of podcasts out there. And you know what? Everybody's making their way in the world, and we're just trying to do the same. We're hanging our shingle, as they would say. So as for this show, culturecast.com, patreon.com, all those places you can go to support us financially. Rate and review the show on iTunes if you don't want to support us financially, because I get it. Shit's hard. Eggs are like $5 a dozen. Nothing's cheap. Nothing's cheap anymore, folks. Other than sitting and talk about movies is free. That's what's free these days. So, but Susan, thank you so much for joining me. Even if this was kind of the maybe the low point of the 4, but I think we had some really good highs, so I don't think it ultimately mattered. But
Even talking about bad movies is an interesting exercise, right? It's
I agree.
worthwhile.
I totally agree. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.